Hello, everyone. Welcome to Good Film Hunting, a podcast about an average couple who are on the hunt for some good movies. In today's world, we are consuming more media than ever, perhaps more passively than ever. But we believe that by documenting and discussing the media we intake, how and what we intake will change for the better. It is important that we don't just become another consumer, but a participant, seeking to engage with the media we consume, so that we can see how our view of the world affects how we perceive it, and how it affects how we perceive the world. In this podcast, we are not only on the hunt for some good movies, but on the hunt for a good discussion. So, lean in, participate, and enjoy. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, somewhat delayed episode of Good Film Hunting. James Scott here as always, and not sitting next to me, but across from me with our new little baby is my wife, Savannah Scott. Say hi.
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 Hello.
Hello. How are you feeling?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Pretty good.
How's the baby doing?
She's doing good. She's
Doing
sleeping.
She's
Snoozing.
very close to the mic, so if you hear little grunts as we're going along, just that don't really make any sense. You can attribute that to the infant. Also, I'm experimenting with the audio on these mics, so if you're listening to this and it's just kind of, from one episode to the next, it's, different, just know that I'm trying to figure out the best one possible, so eventually there will be more consistency. I just figured, we'd make content while I figure it out, so you can still listen to it, it's still listenable, if that's a word. It will sound different. The mixing will sound a little different from episode to episode for now. So I'm aware of that. And I know it's not super professional, but I don't care.
It's true.
It's true.
And
Better done than perfect.
And if we're honest with ourselves, how many people sit down and listen to our episodes all the way through?
I don't know. There might be one person. What if we have one fan who does that?
Maybe.
One critic. We did have that one person who listened once to our Addams Family review and told us our podcast was terrible and the movie was great, even though we thought the movie wasn't good. Differing opinions.
It's
Everyone's
true.
entitled to their own opinion. Some people's opinions are just wrong.
I was reminded of the Addams Family movie today, and I was like, that was such a bizarre movie.
It was pretty bizarre. Yeah. It just, yeah. It existed and it's gone now.
It's true.
It's in the past. But we're not talking about the Addams Family. Savannah, what are we talking about?
We're talking about The Minority Report.
We are.
Starring Tom Cruise.
The one and only.
And that's about it as far
That's
as...
about it. Is this our
academic.
first Tom Cruise movie
Of
that
the
we're
year?
reviewing?
And I guess it might be.
I think so. We like Tom Cruise as an actor. He's pretty good. We like his Mission Impossible movies. We like The Last Samurai. What else is that? I know we've seen him at least. War of the Worlds with Steven Spielberg. I'm sure there's something else we've seen him in, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Most notably the Mission Impossible
Most
movies.
noticeably.
Well, and also The Last Samurai. That one's really good.
It's true. It is very good. So Minority Report. If you were listening to this for the first time, I'll kind of give a brief breakdown of the episode structure so you can be familiar with it. I've got a long list of facts for Savannah that I will go ahead and tell her that she may or may not know. We'll just kind of see her react to that, or listen to her react because we're not looking at her face if you're listening. Then we'll share our general thoughts on the movie, our favorite moment of the movie. We'll go through our rating system, which has 4 categories that we'll rate on a scale of 1 to 5. We'll share our overall, just general rating, and then we'll move on to our next movie at another point in time. So, just also, this is going to be a very spoiler-filled conversation from beginning to end. We'll definitely start lighter on the spoilers and then get heavier as we go along, especially into our rating system. All right, Savannah, you ready for some facts about this movie?
Always. This is my
Always
favorite
your
part.
favorite part? So there were a lot of facts about this one. Like if you pull up the Wikipedia page, you're like, phew, this is overwhelming. So I kind of pick and choose, and even then I might have too many. So if I see you
Glazing over
and lulling back and one of those snot bubbles coming out of your nose, then I know I've gone too far. I know I need to wrap it up. All right. So when was this released, though? Can you guess that?
1999.
No, we're kind of close, but
2004.
a bit back.
2002.
Yep, it was. This was released June 21st, 2002. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, who did Catch Me If You Can, which we did review. It was distributed by DreamWorks Pictures, which was co-founded by Steven Spielberg. I guess back in the early days, they were doing a mix of live action and animation as they were trying to find their ground.
And now all they do is children's animated movies.
Well, because they realized that's the most profitable.
How sad.
It's kind of like Warner Brothers. They had an animation department and then realized it wasn't working for them, so they shut it down.
How sad.
I know, it's so sad.
But isn't the Lego Batman movie Warner Brothers?
It is.
So that it's animated.
I know, it is, but I think Storks was like Yeah,
Wait,
that's
Storks was Warner Brothers?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
There are not very many Warner Brothers animated movies. Like, if you look at, like, Disney, like, Warner Brothers, they're just not noted for them. And they have some occasionally. But.
Yeah, okay.
It has a runtime of 145 minutes, a budget of, got a text. Has a budget of $105 million. Its box office was $356.4 million.
Nice.
So not too bad.
Good profit.
I know. This made it the 10th highest grossing film of 2002. On its opening weekend, it barely beat, can you guess what movie? Probably not.
Probably not.
Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, did that come out in 2002?
It did, which is crazy, right? That's movies over 20 years old. That's insane.
I know. Wow.
While Lilo and Stitch had more tickets sold, most of the audience members were children, which meant the tickets were cheaper.
Oh. Phew.
I know, that's very funny.
That is quite a twist of fate.
I know. So I did pull up the highest grossing movies of 2002 because I was curious to know what beat out Minority Report. First on the list, we have The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, which had 936 million. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which had 878 million.
They really, banged out all the Harry Potter movies and,
Well, they had to because the kids were growing.
It's true.
You kind of can't.
Oh, I guess that's true.
You film really close together.
Poor things. They must have worked really hard for a long time.
It's true, but, there's whole laws about how much children can work in a day. So,
That's true.
And eventually they were adults, even though they were acting as children
And
or
now
teenagers.
they're incredibly wealthy. So
It's true.
It's worth it. Sorry.
And then after Harry Potter was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. After that was Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This is a big year for movies.
I know. Those are all very iconic movies.
After that was Men in Black 2. And after that was Die Another Day. I'm not sure which that one is. I don't know if it's James Bond. After that was Signs, which I think is the Shyamalama, whatever the guy's name is.
M. Night
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan.
Yes.
Shyamalan.
After that, at number 8 was Ice Age. Number 9 was My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I want to watch that movie. Next time, if you see that somewhere,
Let you know.
let me know.
Okay. And then came Minority Report. But guess what was right after Minority Report as number 11?
What?
We know this. We should know this.
I've
already said the name of the movie.
No.
Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, Catch Me If You Can. Interesting. Same
Yeah.
year?
Same year.
Steven Spielberg, two
Yep,
movies?
2 movies, 1 year.
Wow.
He's done that several
What a
times.
guy.
I know. It must be exhausting. This movie, as we know... Oh, go ahead.
There's no labor laws keeping him from working.
It's true, right?
years.
This stars Tom Cruise as John Anderton, Max von Sydow as Lamar Burgess. He's been in nothing that we've seen. Colin Farrell as Danny Witter. He was the young government guy who was trying to trace down Tom Cruise's character and was kind of bad, but then had the turn at the end once he figured out the truth. We've seen Colin Farrell in one movie. He was the Penguin in The Batman.
Oh, the Penguin. I was like, how did he play a penguin?
I know. Which, if you look at photos of Colin Farrell, the actor, and then the prosthetics for the Penguin character in The Batman, They do not look at all similar, so it's very impressive.
Well, his name is what? Colin.
Colin Farrell. And it also starred Samantha Morton as Agatha Lively. So this movie had a very big and lengthy development, so buckle up. Minority Report is based off Philip K. Dick's 1956, is it not novella?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay, novella, the Minority Report. And it was supposed to be a sequel to another movie called Total Recall, which came out in 1990, which is another science fiction action film, which starred Arnold Schwarzenegger as the lead actor. It was based off the 1966 short story, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
Interesting.
I know. But the movie has got a bit of a cooler name. Cruise and Spielberg did not take a upfront payment when they signed on to do this movie. And that's something Spielberg, I guess, has always done, is rather than take a payment, he'll take like a percentage of the profit. So Cruise and Spielberg both took 15% of the average gross rather than taking any money up front. And Spielberg apparently, when working with big actors, kind of tries to get them on this deal. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just because they're all recognizing it's a gamble. But I guess most notably, Tom Hanks did that as well when he was starring in Saving Private Ryan, who directed by Steven Spielberg. This production of Minority Report was delayed for several years after Steven Spielberg was signed on to direct it, because Mission Impossible 2 infamously went over schedule, because apparently this affected The Lord of the Rings and this movie drastically.
Interesting. And it wasn't even that good of a movie.
I know, it was probably one of the worst action movies I've ever seen.
I have to.
I don't know. Rewrites for this movie, Minority Report, caused controversy because the new writers who took it on once Spielberg went to direct it apparently kind of rewrote it, but had never read the original script, but like used ideas. And then there was a bunch of debate as to like who was supposed to get credit for it. And so it had to go through to like the Director Guilds of America. And it was just a whole thing.
It's very dramatic.
I know. I think the guys who ended up rewriting it didn't get credit as writers, but as like executive producers instead.
Oh.
So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And also Steven Spielberg, it ended up being delayed on his side because he had to finish directing a movie called AI, which director Stanley Kubrick was supposed to do, but he ended up dying before he could do it. So Spielberg signed on to take over for him.
AI. I wonder what their concept of AI would have been back then.
Let's see. The cast was originally very different. For Whitwer, Steven Spielberg originally wanted Matt Damon. He also wanted Meryl Streep, Ian McKellen, and Cate Blanchett on this movie.
Who would Meryl Streep play?
She would do Iris Heineman. I guess she was kind of the crazy character who...
Oh,
Tom
the lady,
Cruise-
the greenhouse plant lady.
Yeah,
Oh,
think
I
that's
could
who
see
she would have
that.
been. Damon opted out due to scheduling conflicts with Ocean's 11, and the other roles were recast due to delays. I guess Ian McKellen, was Mission Impossible 2. He was going to be in that, but because it was delayed so much, he just opted out to do Lord of the Rings instead. Which, phew, thank goodness, right?
I know.
Whoo-wee.
What would Lord of the Rings be without him?
I know, right? Everything hinges on him. Apparently, Whitwer, the role was suggested to, or Steven Spielberg asked Javier Bardem, who did Stilgar and Dune, to play the role, but he turned it down.
And so he found a bunch of people who we have never really heard of.
I know,
to
right?
play the role.
They were good.
They were. It's true.
It's always fun to see new faces. This film was one of the first to entirely have what is known as previs prior to actually filming it. And Lord of the Rings was one of the first too. It's where essentially they, kind of like a storyboard, they make like a computer graphic version of the movie in certain scenes to kind of walk through and blocking it, especially if it is going to have visual effects. So it was one of the first times it was used. This action crew in this one was the same one as Mission Impossible 2. The film was deliberately overlit to create a noir and washed out figure, and then the film was bleached. So you might have noticed that it looked very bright.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a weird, almost cartoony look to it in some ways.
Yeah.
The opening of the film was often described as a trailer for the movie because it kind of just laid out the whole plot in like 14 minutes. And due to AI's disappointing box office return that Steven Spielberg directed, the marketing crew downplayed Steven Spielberg's role in the film and marketed it more as a Tom Cruise action thriller.
Oh, how sad.
I know. It's like, oh well, we know how this works. This film was nominated for the Best Sound Editing at the Academy Awards. It did not win. A TV series was started on May 9th, 2015, based off of this, but then was canceled May 13th, 2016. I'm not sure why, but I guess it just wasn't successful enough.
Oh, how sad.
Fun fact, around 1 hour and 2 minutes, the scene where Lewis Smith, Dr. Isis Heinemann, the greenhouse lady, kisses Tom Cruise. Apparently it wasn't scripted, so Tom Cruise's reaction of surprise in the film is this genuine, authentic shock.
Interesting.
So, oh, okay. Biggest goof about this was probably the logic regarding the eyes, because Tom Cruise can kind of just walk in, even though he's, being charged for murder. Like, they don't do precautions to, like, lock him out of the building. He can just kind of walk in with his eyes and get access to anywhere.
I know. I remember
and then he's
commenting on
taken prisoner, and his eyes can still get access because his wife uses them. So it's like, okay, all right.
I know, they're too distracted. They're like, we caught him, and they
know,
forgot
right?
to turn it off. They forgot to block out his eyes. It's very weird.
I know. Okay, so those were all my facts about this movie. Quite a bit.
I forgot about that whole eye changing thing.
I know, that was
So
very, very gross. Yeah,
Ugh.
my least favorite part of the movie. So, what are your general thoughts about this movie?
My general thoughts were that it was very Matrix vibes
Right.
in a lot of ways.
Right.
It was interesting. It was a sci-fi movie, which is not my favorite genre in the world.
Right.
It was sad,
It was pretty sad,
kind
wasn't
of
it?
anxiety
Depressing.
producing, depressing. Yeah, those were my general thoughts. Also, another general thought was that that one of the actors, the actor that played Agatha, was a good actress.
It was pretty good.
And I feel like she stood out to me, even though I really disliked that character because she was really creepy.
Right.
I thought she did a good job.
She did. Yeah, I agree. I liked this movie. I don't know if I loved it. I'd heard about it for a long time, and a lot of people really like it. Kind of like The Matrix, everybody knows The Matrix is iconic, so we watched it and we're like, oh, that was good, but like, I feel like at this point in time, we've been exposed to better storytelling.
Yeah.
And this one, I wouldn't say that's the issue, just so much as just maybe some aspects of it just didn't vibe with me as much. I wouldn't be opposed to watching this one again. I'd probably rather watch this one than The Matrix again. I thought it raised a lot of interesting moral questions because of the whole premise of, we can predict a murder so we can stop the murderer. But like, what are your rights to do that? How do you operate within that? Should you not? And then, kind of using people as slaves to be able to do that. I very much appreciated the Inception style opening, kind of giving us like the first 14 minutes where, okay, and here are how the rules of the world work, without really explaining it overly much. They just kind of go through it, and then they backtrack and it kind of explain everything you just saw. I thought that was fun. What else? Yeah, I just don't think Steven Spielberg type of directing is the one that appeals to me the most. I think like I can tell that he's good. I can tell from watching it. Like I'm feeling everything he wants me to feel without me feeling like he's pushing it in my face. I just, it's not one that like tickles my fancy per se.
Yeah.
I think he tells really good stories for the most part, but like I'm a sucker for like, Christopher Nolan and his cross-cutting and tension building and just the way that he particularly tells stories. So I think Spielberg is, for the most part, a very good storyteller through his films. It's just, I can't say that I'm like inspired by it in the same way.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm as in tune to the differences between directors as you are. So I can't really say that.
Well, if you watch like a Steven Spielberg and then Christopher Nolan movie, it'll be like black and white, obvious. Like,
No, that's true.
Clearly one person did this one.
Christopher Nolan has a very specific directing style.
Right, and most directors of Steven Spielberg and Chris Nolan's level have a very distinct style, which is what makes them so popular, because people are like, oh, they have a format that really works for me, and I really appreciate that type of storytelling.
I don't know if I've seen enough Steven Spielberg movies.
You've seen, I guess not. You've seen Jurassic Park, you've seen Catch Me If You Can, you've seen Minority Report. I've seen quite a few more. Jaws, I think, is my favorite of his. Jurassic Park is pretty good too. Yeah, I haven't like seen one that War for the Worlds was one of his. I can't say that I've seen one yet that I don't like. Oh, Empire of the Sun was another one I saw. I liked that one quite a bit, although it had a very, very prolonged ending, which is a theme I'm noticing.
Yeah, I'd be like,
Before we move on to our general rating system, kind of sharing more thoughts about the movie, did you have a favorite moment of the movie? A moment, a line that stood out? It's been a few weeks since we've seen this, so we're a little hazy.
Not really. I feel like I don't often have favorite movies or parts of some of the movies we watch, because we usually watch kind of more sci-fi thriller movies, and like for me,
usually watch.
Favorite means that it evokes some sort of like good vibes within me.
So it has to be good vibes.
That's just kind of what I think of when I have a favorite part of the movie.
Right.
Or like a really emotional part. I don't necessarily have one for this movie.
Okay. I don't know if I have a favorite moment. Well, maybe a moment that stood out to me, and maybe it shouldn't be my favorite moment. It was just such a weird and like creepy thing. Was there was the caretaker for the three.
Oh yeah.
The three people. What do they call it? Precogs.
Yeah.
And when Agatha gets stolen by Tom Cruise's character, and he's flipping out. It's like and then they get her back, and he has like this very weird, affectionate thing for her, and it's like you're watching that and be like, man, that's really weird and messed up.
I know.
I can't say it's like my favorite in the sense of like makes me feel good things, but for some reason, like watching that moment, I was like, man, this is messed up. I feel like something about that just kind of made it sink in.
Yeah.
Like, this is just all very messed up.
I know, and it's weird that like he kind of just struck me as like kind of like a weird like high schooler, and like presumably he'd have to have some sort of high education to deal with them.
I know. He was 25 maybe. Maybe I'll think of a better favorite moment. I felt like there were a lot of funny moments. I just can't remember of any specific moments.
When he was brushing Agatha's teeth.
It's pretty funny. All right, so we're going to go through our rating system. We have 4 categories that we'll rate on a scale of 1 to 5. Entertainment, quality, writing, and content. Savannah, on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give them... on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give Minority Report?
4.
As far as entertainment goes.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'd probably give it a 3.
A 3?
Yeah, it was moderately entertaining.
Moderately entertaining, okay.
Yeah. I thought it was... I'm trying to remember. I think it was pretty decently engaging. Definitely, like I said, kind of sad in a lot of ways, and dark, but interesting concept. Yeah, and I think I was, I feel like I was invested in the main character.
Right.
In his plight.
His plight. What was his plight?
Well, like hunting down the guy that killed his son.
Well, that wasn't really the premise.
Well,
He was accused of being a murderer.
okay, he was accused of being a
And
murderer.
so he was trying to find the man he'd never heard of before who he murdered.
Okay, yes. And then he ended up being the guy that killed his son, quote, in quotes.
Well, he was framed as that.
He was framed as that.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was invested in his feelings about
the whole situation.
Yes.
I know. Yeah, that was a very tragic backstory.
I feel like, especially since we have a son.
Right.
It's always...
Makes it more relatable.
Yeah. Not relatable, but like...
Well, no, the fears of that.
Oh, the fear, okay.
Yeah. No, it makes it more sympathetic.
Yeah.
I apologize. Relatable was not the right word. I would give it a 4. I thought, while I can't say there was any one element about it that like stood out to me as being fantastic, I think everything came together pretty well and told a pretty good story. I feel, once again, as I mentioned before, there's a pattern I'm noticing with Spielberg and his movies, is that they kind of tend to drag towards the end. It's the same way with Catch Me If You Can, War of the Worlds, same way with this one, same way with Empire of the Sun. I don't think that was the case for Jurassic Park or Jaws, but it's kind of like you reach a point where it's like, okay, all right, wrap it up, and then it just kind of keeps going. It's almost like they want to wrap everything up so nicely that they're kind of taking their time to reach the end, maybe. I don't know if you feel the same way or not.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the end of this movie was.
It was the twist. Whitwer's character discovers the truth that Tom Cruise's character was framed. He gets murdered by the man who actually set up Tom Cruise's character. And then it's kind of a long progression of revealing this man to be behind everything to the rest of the public. Mm-hmm. And it's via his wife and trying to free Tom Cruise's character. And it's kind of, I feel like it reached a point where I'm kind of like, I know where this is going and I just want it to wrap up.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest, not sin of this movie. The biggest thing for me was that I kind of already knew all the twists that were coming before they came, for the most part. Like, I knew who the bad guy was who framed Tom Cruise's character from the beginning. Like, oh, it's the nice old guy. Clearly he framed him. John Whitworth's character is not a bad character. He's actually going to turn out to be good. And he'll probably get killed. And I know Tom Cruise's character, well, I didn't know he was not going to kill it. Like, actually, no, I can't say that I knew for sure whether or not he would. I knew he wouldn't as soon as it became so blatantly obvious that the person who killed his son, quotes, was not the actual person, because there was all the what do you call that? All the photos?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, that was still not unconvincing, because I feel like if he was like a creepy like pedophile or something who like killed kids, he would collect a bunch of pictures and like...
Right, but the fact that there was a pile of it sitting there in the bed, it was like, clearly this is a setup.
Yeah,
clearly he's being framed.
I guess I'm gullible.
I know he's not going to kill him. If it had been more subtle, I think I would have been a little more like, is he going to kill him or not? But it was just a matter of Tom Cruise's character, realizing it.
Yeah.
I thought the world, I thought it had a very interesting premise and very interesting world that they built. Like, it was very interesting. Like, oh, what if you can stop this particular crime from happening?
Yeah.
Would you? And clearly it's working to some capacity. I think Steven Spielberg films they're always quirky, and they're always kind of silly in a lot of ways. The characters are fun. There's always a lot of funny lines in there. I think there's not really the case for Schindler's List as much.
Oh, did he use Schindler's List?
Yeah, he did. I think there was. I think I remember being surprised how much there was in Schindler's List. Like, it's a very sad, depressing movie, but I remember watching it being like, no, this is totally Spielberg still being Spielberg. I was really engaged in Tom Cruise's character and kind of his mission of not wanting to get caught and where he was at in life and why he joined the whatever the department was called. I forget.
The pre-crime.
Pre-crime, right. I loved how the mystery for this story, the mystery aspect, really just tied into the world building aspect. Like, you could only have a mystery, or the only way this mystery could have worked out is in this world because it relied on the science fiction aspect they built around it. And they set up the rules, and then Tom Cruise's character kind of, or not Tom Cruise, I think it was Whitwer's character, realized, wait a second, someone's been manipulating those rules. And I thought that worked well. I thought they came together well, which goes into writing. But I thought, in entertainment, it worked out for me. On a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give this for quality? Production quality, acting, editing, cinematography, music.
I'd probably give it a 3 also.
Really?
Yeah, it was very olden days in a lot of ways.
Olden days?
Very early 2000s in
Right.
a lot of ways, which isn't bad. I thought some of the sets were a little weird.
A little
Like
weird.
the places that they were, like the dream place where you went into the rooms and like got to experience things, remember?
Oh, right. Kind of like the virtual reality thing.
Yeah, like that was just kind of weird.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Some of the special effects were a little odd.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, well, maybe a 3 or a 4. The acting was good from what I recall. Yeah, I don't know, maybe 3.5.
3.5, that's fine. I'd give this a 4 personally. I think it's good, but like you mentioned, I just don't think it aged very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the special effects are very cartoony. I don't know if that was intentional because it almost fit in with like the colors and the lighting they were going for, just being so bright and desaturated.
Well,
at the
I
same
thought,
time.
speaking of special effects, I think the precogs were pretty well done as far as their appearances.
Oh,
and that
kinda
wasn't
making them,
special
like-
effects, I guess, but that was more
Yeah,
like
that'd be
makeup.
like makeup.
But
right.
that was pretty good. I
Yeah.
thought that was decent. They were, of course, super creepy, and I hated them with all my soul. But,
Wow, that's sad.
But I thought it was interesting.
They were disabled, okay?
Were they?
Yeah, and they were
Oh,
being
that's true.
used.
Okay, yeah, that is true. But still. No, it's not. It's not. No, I just thought they were creepy.
Okay, they were a little off-putting, and I think that was the point. I thought the score was fine. It was John Williams, and I don't know, his music in this and Catch Me If You Can are just like, very unmemorable in my opinion.
I don't remember it at all.
I really like the integration of the classical music they used. That was fun. I thought there was a lot of it that was just made it fun. Acting was good. I thought this was definitely Tom Cruise's biggest emotions we've seen so far on screen that we've seen personally.
Yeah, that's true.
And I thought he did a good job with that. It was very convincing. Like he was, when he meets this guy who he thinks, took away his son and probably murdered him, he flipped out on this guy and is being, beating him up and like, yeah, I believe you. I don't blame you for beating this man up.
I would do the same thing.
No, I think that was pretty much everything as far as quality went. There's not a whole lot here. I just felt like quality overall was just, there were interesting stylistic choices made, but like, it didn't, like it was, I just noted it as being interesting. That was it. I can't say that I like really liked it or really didn't dislike it. It was just kind of like, okay. It works for this world that you set up. Makes it very, not even super distinct maybe not distinct enough. But yeah, it is what it is. What would you give this on a scale of 1 to 5 for writing, which includes the plot and the characters and the dialogue?
That would mean I have to remember the plot and the writing and the dialogue.
Well, basic premise, there's pre-crime. We get the first 14 minutes. We're introduced to the idea because this man is going to murder, he's going to murder his wife and her other lover for understandable reasons. You know, he's kind of upset about that. And then they stop him and you're introduced like, this is the world we live in.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene. Because the guy was like, I wasn't going to do anything. I wasn't going to hurt her. But they were like, so they swooped him up.
I know. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he had the scissors in his hands.
It's true.
So was he going to do it or was he not? And then we're just kind of, a little more dialogue, a little more game world building. Eventually, John Whitworth's character is introduced. He's questioning the, what does this system really do? Is it any good? Is there room for human error? Then Tom Cruise's character gets blamed or supposedly commits a murder based on the vision of one of the precogs. And it becomes this quest of like trying to run away and having to find this man or wanting to find this man that he's never heard of that he's going to murder. Kind of the adventures of Tom Cruise. He gets his eyes replaced. He steals Agatha.
He runs.
As Tom Cruise does. He probably runs some more.
It's true. I would say I'd give it a 4, I think.
Okay.
I think it was, from what I recall, I think it was a pretty smooth sailing story and fairly easy to follow.
Right. I think, yeah. Was there anything about it that stood out to you for better or for worse?
I can't say that anything specific stood out to me very much. But I did think I also liked the dynamic of him and his wife and how they ended up together again.
That's true.
And they ended up having another child. And I just thought that was a good ending, and it was well deserved and well-rounded.
Tom Cruise's character was able to move on.
Yeah. Not that
John
having another child
Anderton.
is ever a replacement for a child that you've lost.
For sure. But
I did like that they were able to
healed
be
enough
back together.
Right.
I like a good, this is kind of a random side note, but in his stories, I do really like a divorced couple falls back in love story.
Yeah.
Especially if they have kids or whatever, and like they end up getting back together and the kids and they have a family again and the kids are happy. Like I always like that story.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It is.
For writing, I think I'd give this a 4. Like I stated before, it had a very interesting premise. I thought it had a very... Ooh, it's pouring rain outside. That's fun. I thought it had a pretty good opening because they set the... they introduced the concept. The supposed murderer, he's very sympathetic because, he's very upset that his wife is cheating on him. And so I thought that was set up well. So, when he's getting carted off for supposedly being murdered, you kind of have mixed feelings about like, oh, thank goodness they prevented this. But like at the same time...
let me interject for a second. I have extremely mixed feelings about the method of dealing with the criminals. They basically like lock them up forever to like rot.
Not rot. They use their brains like in the Matrix.
Like, that just seems so weird, especially considering now.
I know, right?
Not to get into the nitty-gritty of those details, but like...
Right.
They don't deal with murderers that way at all.
No, not really. It's a bit different now.
So maybe one could argue. But like, it begs the question, is murder the worst crime you could commit? Is it worth plugging your brain into the Matrix?
I don't know. I mean, I think it probably is the worst crime. I mean, maybe only crime that would be worse is, maliciously maiming someone, because then they're alive and suffering as opposed to being dead.
Really? I can think of other things, like other worse things, probably.
Worse things,
but I don't want to
maybe.
talk about them.
No.
But, yeah. That I thought the way that they dealt with the criminals was very odd.
Yeah, it was a little like, well, this is weird and maybe not ethical, but whatever.
I know, probably definitely less ethical than foreseeing the crimes in the first place.
Perhaps. I really liked, as far as the writing goes, how they made the comment that, most murders are, what do they call it? Passionate murders?
Crimes of passion, yeah.
And so they've got to respond very quickly to them because the precogs can only see so far as opposed to the plotted murders. So, when Tom Cruise gets, I guess it's the red ball that's the plotted ones. And it's very like, oh, it's a plotted murder. What idiot would think of this? Pulls it up. Oh, that's me. Oops. Twist of fate.
No.
I thought the John Anderton, Tom Cruise character, was a very compelling protagonist. He had a very tragic backstory, which makes sense for the kind of life he's living, why he's so invested in pre-crime, maybe why he's doing a little bit of drugs on the side. You know, he's kind
I forgot about that.
kind of depressed. He's not a happy guy.
That's true.
I thought the precogs were really interesting, compelling. I kind of like that Agatha became an active character in the plot when John Anderton kind of kidnaps her, precognapped her.
Yes, I know, that was weird.
Yeah, I thought that was, I kind of liked how she became like an actual character, and we saw her more as a human rather than a humanoid thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's freaking out and she's overwhelmed and she has emotions. I feel bad for her.
I know.
Once again, I kind of knew who the villain was from the beginning of the movie. I knew that John Anderton was set up. I didn't really know if he was going to kill said man or not until he got to the room and I saw that it was obviously faked. Like, logically, it makes no sense. This guy's like, I'm going to compile all my photos on the bed and just, okay, that's really weird.
I know, just stick with him.
I know. The action scenes, I guess this is going to quality. I thought the action scenes in this were kind of boring and just noise.
Yeah.
And they're just work. For a Tom Cruise action thriller being marketed that way, it was kind of like, whatever. I wouldn't have sold it.
I would call it more like a psychological thriller.
That works. Yeah, writing, it was good. It was good, but not phenomenal. And there was the whole eye logic, which for some reason I can't, Okay. We're going on to content, where we weigh the more negative aspects of the story or elements of the story that we felt were unnecessary, offensive, and weigh against the overall story and more positive aspects. On a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give this for content?
I can't remember. The higher the number, the less bad it is.
Right. For example, 1 is, hopefully we would never watch something that would be a 1, right?
Okay.
And 5 is like, oh, this is the most, like, perfect movie in terms of content. It doesn't have to be G, but, like, if it's a PG-13, what's one we gave 5? I think Arrival we might have given 5. Mm-hmm. There was 1 F-bomb in there, but, like, aside from that, it's one of the most, like,
squeaky clean
movies you can get.
It's true. I would say probably give this one a 2.
A 2, wow.
For creepiness.
For creepiness, interesting. So that's more of a vibe thing.
That's true.
But
maybe
no,
3. Okay, maybe a 3.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I just hit my
Ouch.
2 or 3 for creepy vibes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say someone could be easily disturbed by this movie.
It's a little disturbing.
I used to think I was a sensitive person, but I don't know if I just block out that part of my brain now because I'm married to you and we watch things that disturb me.
I didn't think this was as creepy as The Matrix.
Really? Well,
Right, because it had AI and, the whole bug thing in the stomach and...
That's true. Okay, fine. I'll give it a 3.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't remember a whole lot if there was a lot of language or not.
Me neither.
And the vibes were kind of not, I wouldn't say creepy so much as just like unnerving in a lot of ways. The only creepy part was the whole eye scene. Eye surgery scene. They didn't show the eye surgery, but it was just like leading up to this is gross.
This movie kind of had similar vibes to the Batman as far as like darkness and weirdness.
Really?
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
I'm gonna give it a 4 because I think for the world they were building, the vibes fit. The reason if I were to give it a 3, I'd feel like there'd have to be some element that they threw in there that detracted from the overall story. Like, there's like little to no. I mean, there was like very minor sexual No, there was some sexual content. I take that back.
In this movie?
Yeah, I take that back. There was.
Was there?
Yeah, there was the beginning, and then there's like some flashing moments in the VR place, and then there's like the whole spider bot scene just kind of walking in on people.
Oh, I
So
guess.
maybe I give it a 3 then, now that I'm remembering that. But like, it wasn't terrible. It was very quickly passing. Everything fit the story, even the stuff at the beginning.
Which was what?
The wife and the guy.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like, that fit the story. Like, that fit me sympathizing for this person who supposedly was going to be a murderer. Like, oh, I feel really bad for this guy, and it would make sense if he did this now, and not that it's right. Yeah, I guess there were like little things thrown in there, here and there. So 3, 3, 4. I'll just say 3.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, so what would you give this for overall rating?
3.
Just 3?
Yeah, it was just okay.
Just okay? Mm-hmm. That was interesting. How sad. I would give it a 3.5. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it better than The Matrix. No, not hating on The Matrix. It's just, I know The Matrix iconic, and this one isn't necessarily iconic, but I think this one just engaged me more in terms of the world building and the characters and the the questions that were raised, and it was a little more creative even, I think. So yeah, I'd give it 3.5. I'd rather watch this than The Matrix. Matrix wasn't bad. It's just this one appeals to me a little bit more. But even this movie, it like doesn't appeal to me in the way that some other movies would.
I honestly think I like The Matrix more.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't love it at all. I would not really ever watch it again, probably. But I think I enjoyed The Matrix. Like, I thought it was more interesting.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Totally allowed to think that. Personal opinions. Okay. Well, yeah, I think those are overall ratings. I guess, yeah, if we were to recommend movie, I guess I kind of always ask, sorry, it's been a few weeks since we've done this. I always ask if we'd recommend it or not to anybody. Personally, I think this would be one I would recommend just because it is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily sell it as like the best movie of all time, but I feel like this is a movie where if one watches it, there can be conversation that can be had out of it. So I'd want someone to watch it and be like, well, let's talk about it. What did you think about the world and the questions that were raised? So I think I'd recommend it. Maybe you wouldn't.
I mean, I just think about the people that I recommend movies to,
Right.
and then I can't think of them wanting to watch this, so
Right.
I don't think I would.
Fair enough. All right, well, thank you everyone for listening. We hope you've been inspired to have some more conversations around the movies you're watching, maybe even this film if you've seen it before. Let us know what you thought about our ratings in the comments. Let us know what you think about this movie in the comments. And until next time, good film hunting.